Hi there. It's Elaine Lindsay of True Social Media, and I'm your host of the Business Banter Plus TV show. I'm really excited to be back because I've been gone for a few months for sure. I'm your online show maven, I'm told, a Google Plus early adopter and the second most curious person on the planet. Because we all know the first of everything's in Texas. I didn't want to fight with them. Anyway, I am so thrilled to be back, and I'm going to be bringing you more guests, amazing guests from all walks of life. They all have a story to share, and they all have phenomenal tips for both your personal life and business. So why not make yourself comfy as we get started to talk with Ted Coiné. Hi, Ted.
Hey, Elaine.
Good to have you. Just a little information about Ted, because OMG, there's tons. He is now the Chief Marketing Officer of Meddle. It's the next generation of content marketing for organizations and individuals. We're going to have to get into that because I have a whole bunch of questions. In the social age, a company is only as strong as its talent, and your talent deserves a voice. That's right for Meddle. Ted is a Forbes Top 20 social media power influencer and an Inc. Top 100 leadership expert. This stance at the crossroads of social and leadership gave Ted a unique perspective to identify the demise of the industrial age management and the birth of the social age. The result, after 5 years of trend watching, interviewing, and intensive research, is his latest co-authored book, A World Gone Social: How Companies Must Adapt to Survive. And as an Inc. Top 100 speaker and one of Business News Daily's 15 Twitter accounts every entrepreneur should follow, Ted's also a serial business founder and 3-time CEO. He lives in Naples, Florida, with his wife and 2 lovely daughters. So, Ted, so wonderful to have you back. Ted is a repeat guest, and I think we're in for a treat.
I am a proud repeat guest, as a matter of fact, Elaine, because first of all, you're a fascinating person. I love talking with you. Heart of gold to match, so you're not just interesting, you're good, which is key. And Elaine, everybody, is my coach in using Google+, especially the Hangouts. So I owe all of my knowledge 100% to you. Thank you.
Thank you. God, it's starting to sound like a commercial.
But that's okay. You really helped me. That's what friends do.
Well, and we do go back a few years, which is really cool. Through your co-author is how Ted and I first met, through Mark Babbitt. Little shout out to Mark. And Mark's going to be on the show in April. So we'll be getting a little info from him, too. You're all such interesting guys that I just find it fascinating to learn from you. And, I literally devoured the book, found it just incredible. And then, bang, you popped up and said, woo, you have to check out Meddle. It's like, where are we going now? So, without further ado, what is Meddle?
All right, Meddle. I am just crazy about it. That's why I needed to meet the CEO. That's why I needed to start working at Meddle, because I was using it, and it was really cool. So let me tell you, Meddle is it's blogging for the other 99%. So most of us are not bloggers, and we're not paid by our companies to be bloggers, right? And even if we're a solo shop, we don't get paid to blog. So we need to establish our personal brand, and I think we're going to talk a lot about that because it's an important topic for everybody in 2015. We need to develop our personal brand, but we can't spend 4 or 5 hours a day writing a blog post, even if you only write one a week. Who has that kind of time? Now, I personally have been blogging long form since 2006. My first book came out in 2005, and right away I opened up a blog and started just sharing my thoughts. And the idea was I wanted to get more speaking gigs. This was a way to establish my thought leadership. Well, let's say I've been doing it about once a week, at least for the past, say, 4 years. That's my commitment to myself, is I'll at least put out one piece of content to keep myself fresh, to keep myself in the public eye. all the while, Elaine, I've been looking at enviously at, say, Seth Godin. He really nails it with he's got these micro little blog posts that he does every single day.
Yeah.
And the guy, you know, he's up at bat 1,000,000 times more than me. He hits more home runs than I do. I mean, by far. I love his stuff. Everybody loves his stuff.
Yeah.
Part of his trick is that he's daily, and people love that constant daily consistency that he provides. And another part of it is that his stuff is short, and so you know emotionally that you can just look at it on your phone when you know, it comes to you in your email or what have you. Look at it in your phone. You can read it in a minute or 3, and then you're on with your life. No big time commitment. Now, that model, like I said, is something that I envied, but I didn't know what to do. I mean, what am I going to... I can't write short.
No.
That's my problem. So then some friends said, Ted, these are dear friends, Robin and Jurgen. I love these guys to death. Do you know Robin, Elaine?
I think so. Yeah, I think you introduced me.
Stratton Burkcastle. I will introduce you if you haven't already met. So
Okay.
Robin and Jurgen said, Ted, you've got to use this tool, Meddle. We've told you a little bit about it, but check it out, seriously, because when you come up to New York next, these guys are in New Jersey, we want to introduce you to Vidar, the CEO. So with that nudge, I finally went on the Meddle website, and like I said, I'd heard about it for about a year. Sorry, I didn't discover it earlier. What you do with Meddle, Elaine, is say you go to Inc. magazine, and Inc's been good to me, so
Yes.
let me give them an ad, right?
Good choice.
It just occurred to me that, okay, say you go to Inc. magazine and you read an article that's really, you know, it's great. It makes you think. And that's the thing about we professionals. No matter what role we're in, we read stuff and it makes us think. And our thoughts, Elaine, are our intellectual property. But how often do we do anything to say, hey, you know, my intellectual property has value, here it is, and present it to the world? Not most of us, you know, unless you're a blogger. So anyway, you go to Inc. magazine, you read something, and say it's, you know, 10 tips on how to, you know, finance your next startup or something like that.
Yeah.
So you say, this is really good. And, you know, tip number 4 really made me think. And it reminds me of this other article I wrote, and you highlight tip number 4. That starts your Meddle. You do it right in a tool on your desktop. You haven't left the Inc. site, but Meddle opens up a little thing in your a little window
Nice
down
little
below.
app.
So, yeah, it's really cool. It's an app, so you can look at both of them at the same time. So you highlight tip number 4, and you start writing your short form content, your Seth Godin 5-minute, you know, 5 sentences. And then you hit publish, and you're on with your life. You share it to your social networks, and you can now do what you are actually paid to do for a living. But meanwhile, you've just created some SEO-friendly content that is building your brand. And Elaine, so here's the thing. I started in the middle of November. I have probably written about half a book of content. And it's a little bit at a time. Now, sometimes I write long because that's just me. I'm verbose. But, you know, this makes me think and think and think. But you know, often I'll try to be short. And that's the thing. The people who are really using Meddle and using it well don't just say, hey, this is a great article. You should check it out. Really? Why? You know, there's a link back to the original article. But they're the people who say, here's a great article. It made me think of, you know, this line in particular made me think of this and this. And you write a little bit of context. It's social sharing plus context. It's curation, and it's a hybrid of curation and blogging.
Yeah, yeah.
Way to build your brand. And here's the thing. So this is free, available to everybody. If you are a company that employs smart people, whether you employ 100 smart people or 100,000 smart people, anywhere in the middle, you've got these people who have this talent that the world would like to know. And Elaine, so research shows that people don't really trust marketing departments because marketing is buyers. I'm a marketer, and I don't trust other marketers. Okay? Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, because we're so used to like the, you know, P.T. Barnum kind of thing. Well, what if instead you had every one of your employees providing content like this throughout their day as they get to it, and or you know, throughout their week, even if they did it 3 times a week. They're providing content, and they're doing it on your company's website. So we white label this. It's a white label solution for companies, and that's actually the business model. So it's free for everybody. But if you have a company that employs smart people, we're working with one. It's really funny. It's a consulting firm. It's very large, but I had never in my life heard of them before. Now they're trying to compete with PwC, with Deloitte, Accenture, and here's the thing: they want to be in the same sentence there, but no one knows about them. I swear to God, because I've never read about them. And here they have thousands of employees. So in order to get the name out about their brand, what are they going to do? They could establish a brand that, a blog, a corporate blog, that maybe no one's going to find. Or they can
not for at least a year or two.
Exactly. Or they can, there's a lot of competition out there for content. But if you have the individuals, say, Bob in accounting has, 100 Twitter followers, and he's connected in circles on Google Plus to 400 people. Well, Bob writes a Meddle, he shares it with his friends and his network, and they like it, they share it with each other, it brings them back to the company website. And if you've got, say, like this company, I forget their numbers, but say 8,000 employees,
wow,
and you've got 2,000 of them who are doing this on a regular basis, wow, 2,000 members of your marketing team who are not paid to be part of your marketing team, but they're adding to the brand value of your company.
Yeah,
that's what Meddle's. So anyway, I got really excited about it, Elaine, and then talking to Vidar, we said, hey, why don't you work for us? And I said, I'd love to. So it really is, it's important to get the chronology right. Is first I was an avid user of it, and then, hey, why don't I take on the role of CMO and see how we can do?
I like that. I like that whole attitude. And it's really interesting because in what you said from that business model, you're actually, some of those 2,000 smart individuals are going to put themselves forward as thought leaders in their own right.
Yeah.
Which not only will help the company, but it's going to help the individual as well.
Exactly. Elaine, that's a really good point, and seriously, it's a big issue these days. The statistics show that people stay with their employer less than 3 years on average, and depending on the role, maybe much less or a little bit more, but also depending on generation. So millennials are moving along faster than other people. Yeah. In part, probably because they will not work for a company where they're not getting their emotional needs met, their cause need. If it's not a good cause, if they feel like they're just getting a paycheck, they're going to move on to the greener pastures, right?
Yeah.
But here's the thing: engagement is also, as everyone knows, we've been talking about this for years. Engagement is just horribly low. People don't like their work.
Yeah.
What if rather than saying, hey, you're working hard, we're going to give you a paid day off, which is wonderful. I'm not saying don't give people paid day off, but instead of that, what if the company said, we're going to teach you a little bit about how to use social media, and we're going to teach you the basic fundamentals of building your own personal brand, and then we're going to give you a tool to build your personal brand if you want to use it. It's not an obligation, here it is. And allow people to start building their brands. I've got a really good friend, I love this guy, he's absolutely a genius, and his name is Brad, incredibly talented guy, but until a couple years ago, he had no social presence at all. And he said, Ted, you can't hide anywhere. If somebody wants to know what you stand for, it's been there in the public domain since 2006.
Yep.
If you care about something, it's there. If you don't care at all, its absence is there.
Yeah.
He said, that's really smart, because if I want to get a job, no one knows me from Adam, and I have to have a really good resume and go through the whole front door process. He said, resume? Seriously? Like, somebody can just Google you.
Yeah.
And that got Brad thinking. It also got me thinking about people's personal brands.
Yeah.
It's 2015. If you don't have a big digital footprint where people can Google you, Elaine, when I started, you tell me if this is your experience too. When you Googled me back in, years ago, you would find somebody uploaded pictures and newspaper clippings from when I was in a swimming relay in high school, right? That's like on the first page of Google.
Yeah.
So boy, this Ted guy used to be a swimmer. you know? And for a lot of people, unfortunately, that's still what will bubble up is, you know,
Yeah.
they were in the newspaper once or twice when they were in high school.
Yeah.
But other people, they're building their brand, and even if you have a job that has nothing, you're a computer developer, nothing to do with the public eye, right? And what if personally you're an introvert, it just isn't your thing? Still, when you're looking for your next job, wouldn't it be nice if people could just Google you and, oh boy, you know, they don't have to believe your resume. Let's face it, everyone knows resumes are just part of a big dance anyway. You know,
it's marketing.
The company tells you how wonderful the company is, and the potential employee tells you how wonderful they are, and then they actually start working together and they get to know the truth, which typically they were both lying a little bit. You know, you're putting your best foot forward. So having a digital presence, you know, that's why the work that you do teaching people how to do that better.
Yeah.
Invaluable, Elaine. Seriously.
Well, thank you. And the fact is, and I mean, this is something we've talked about before, is that personal brand is key. Even if you think when you get a job that you're going to stay there forever, you still need to be that individual, have that personal brand that makes you something apart from. You can't just be a faceless person in a crowd of a company anymore.
Yeah.
It's just not feasible in 2015.
You know, so the myth that we're kind of, you know, brought up with, especially if we were younger, but I mean older, I'm sure in some families still, is if you work hard and you put your head down and you do a really good job, your superiors will notice. And the fact of the matter is that besides all this turnover we're talking about, all over the company. So, you know, the people above you may turn over while you're there. And then you have a new boss who has no idea who you are. But on top of that, they've got their own stuff that they're focused on. Yeah. People are not thinking about you nearly as much as you think they're thinking about you or would like them to think about you. So you really do, in a non-braggy way, you have to kind of establish yourself. Yeah. And when I say kind of, I don't mean kind of at all. You have to establish yourself.
Yes, yes. No, and you're absolutely right, and it really is true. And the fact is, that old model where companies, management, and the C-suite paid attention to the, I hate to say echelon, but lower echelons, and saw those who made a point and stood out from the rest.
Yeah. That
was part of their job. It's no longer part of the company mandate.
Yeah. No, it's true. It's absolutely true. It depends entirely on the company, of course. Yes. But unfortunately, people are all in this, especially for a public company, a company that's, you know, traded, and you know, in the U.S. we have this curse of the quarterly report, where if we don't make our numbers, we're out. You know, so that, you know, we're talking about the average employees with a company almost 3 years, the average CEOs with a company 2.5 years. They either perform or they're out on their butt. And unfortunately, performing long-term doesn't really matter much for most of them. They have to perform short-term. Yeah. They're focused on, you know, oh, here's another one that kills me. 1.8 years for vice president of sales.
Wow.
So sad. Not even 2 years, and you're on to your next company, or you're unemployed or whatever. Marketing, strangely, 4.5 years. I think that's hilarious. So who knows why?
Yeah.
But here's the thing. People are with their company a short period of time, and when they're doing their work, they're not thinking about you. You need to stand out, and even if you don't want to, you know, rise up the ladder to the next rung, say you're happy right where you are, still being able to establish yourself as having value to the organization, even if your job is secure, it's still, who's my go-to guy or my go-to gal for this, you know, topic? You can do that by establishing your thought leadership. Yeah. It's a really, you know, to be the go-to person, it's emotionally fulfilling, it's career security. So, you know, when it comes time for your company to tighten its belt, you won't be tightened out of a job.
Exactly. Not only that, when you take that much pride in what you do, and I don't care what you do, it could be anything, but if you take that much pride in it, you're much more likely to be happy when you get up in the morning, to want to go to work.
Elaine, you're so right. So I'll tell you, I feel like a millennial. Millennials are this, that, and the other thing. I'm 48 years old. I'm almost a boomer, Gen X, but almost a boomer. And here's the thing: I'm really a millennial because I like to work for meaning. I like to get up in the morning and say what I'm doing matters. It's important, and that helps me get up before the alarm goes off. It helps me, get going early. It's not drudgery when what you do makes you feel good. So sure.
So I guess spiritually and emotionally, I too am a millennial, but
I know 80-year-old millennials, Elaine.
Yeah. Well, I'm not 80 yet, but this year I will be 60.
It's already here. It's already here.
Yeah. But yeah, absolutely. That feeling of making something matter.
Yeah.
That's my comment to everyone. I end every email, every sentence with make it matter. Make your day matter, make your weekend matter. Like, you got to do something that, for me, makes me fill with joy, or there's no point in the day.
Sure. And if companies can tap into that, if they can say, not only do we have a company that makes the stockholders money, because you know what, who cares? I'm sorry. Yeah. Workers don't care about that. I mean, sure, that's good if you have your retirement invested in your company or whatever, but it's just a number. If you have a company that is making its numbers and then some because it has an energized workforce, because they're energized because they love their work and they're treated well and their company teaches them skills like building a personal brand, then guess what? Oh, and that's another thing, Elaine. Oh my God, this kills me. I have talked to people who've had a couple of different reactions with this. One of them I hear all the time is, well, if we train our people and give them the skills to build their own personal brand, give them a tool to do it, aren't they going to leave? Or aren't they going to be a prima donna and then we won't want to deal with them? Really? If that's the question you're asking, yes, they'll leave because you're a bad employer. If they're a prima donna, when they get a big following on social media, when they are quoted here and there, when journalists are reaching out to them for a story in your industry, which should, by the way, build your company's brand. It's good.
Oh, yeah.
But if they're getting a big head about it, they were always kind of bad.
I was going to say, they had a big head before.
Right, exactly. Don't worry about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Isn't it better to know?
Help them find some place better to work, right? But instead of your company. But as for, do you love Richard Branson half as much as I do? I just love what the guy stands for. I think everybody does. He's like everybody's favorite billionaire.
About him. Yeah.
He's my favorite billionaire, and I don't know if I have a second favorite billionaire. So Richard Branson said, train your employees so well they'll be able to leave. Treat your employees so well they'll never want to. Yeah. And that is my favorite leadership quote. It's my favorite business quote. So you can take it out of the employees and say your teammates, whatever it is, whatever content, your volunteers in nonprofit. Give your volunteers skills and then treat them so well they'll never want to volunteer for another organization. Whatever the case. But that mindset, that's brilliant. And guess what? People are lined up around the block to work for a Virgin company because they love what Richard Branson stands for.
Yeah, absolutely.
Good way to build an empire.
It's if you give anyone autonomy within the structure of your company, you're actually showing them that you value their thoughts, you value their inclusion in the company, you value what they're bringing to the table. And that can be the janitor on the weekend who is, really dedicated to making sure that the company always looks spruced up. He's just as valuable to the CEO, if not more, than some of the middle management. Because what he does is front-facing. That's what people see when they come to the company.
One of my favorite authors is Vineet Nayar. He is the retired CEO of HCLT, HCL Technologies in India, but it's a global brand.
Yeah.
And his company was, this is back in, I think, 2005 when he took over. I might have the year wrong, but it was around there someplace. His company was growing, but at a much slower pace than his competitors. So his competitors are much larger companies. For instance, Tata is a company, I forget, they have a couple 100,000 employees. Yeah. And so they were growing faster. So he was at an inflection point when he took over where his company was in danger of becoming obsolete, where they were in danger of being a third-rate employer. And when you don't have top talent working in your company, it's a death spiral.
Yeah.
Because then you get less, the top talent that you do have within this pool leaves for better offers, and you end up, attracting only people who, oh, well, I couldn't get hired someplace better, right? So his company was facing this crisis. And they implemented something. It took a lot of trial and error. It took a few years, but it's called Employees First, Customers Second.
Wow.
And it doesn't mean Employees First, Customers Never. Yeah. It means employees first because the employees, the front-facing people, the people in what he calls the value zone,
yeah,
they are the ones who are interacting with the customer. Yeah. And so the people like him, the CEO, he said, I'm in a supporting function.
Yeah.
Can you imagine? Yeah. The head of the company, and he said, that whole pyramid that we have, by the way, it's not a ladder, it's a pyramid.
It's a pyramid.
The big boss on top, and then little bosses, and then the peons down, squished at the bottom. Let's flip that upside down, which is also what Nordstrom department stores does. The bosses are on the bottom because they're not bosses, they're servants, they're enablers. Yeah. They help the guys in the front row, the front line, serve the customer. And here's the thing about the social age, though. So a lot of what we were looking into in the book today with social media, everyone has a potential to interact with the customer.
Yeah.
The people in R&D, they can interact with the customer before they ever develop a product, so they can do it in an iterative and crowdsourcing way.
Absolutely.
Rather than let's build something completely and then serve it up and see what happens.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. The whole thing all along, when recruiting is looking for good talent, recruiters are actually one of the first people, I should say, who are on social media. They've got a really good presence on social media. Not every recruiter across the board, but by far, they were some of the first to get there. Yeah. So because why not? You can find some real talent there. So today, everyone in your organization has an opportunity to be front-facing.
Yeah.
To be in the value zone. And that's, that can cut both ways. It's good as long as you have the right people working for you and they have a customer-centric attitude.
Yes, yeah.
But if they don't, it could be bad.
Oh, it can be very bad.
Yeah.
I know I'm not sure if is it the Hilton that when they have job fairs, the all of the people for the job fair are brought in. They are treated to tea and coffee. They are served the way a guest is served.
Yeah, cool.
And that's how they show them and are told, we're treating you the way we want you to treat our guests. Now, as far back as the 80s, I was saying to you, we had a retail store. I've always said that every interaction we have as humans is a sale. Whether you're interacting with your daughters or your wife or your husband or your grandparents or the CEO of the company that supplies you, you are always selling yourself or your company or what you're offering. So it makes sense to me, why don't you treat them, and by them I mean everybody, the way you want to be treated.
Right.
And that, to me, it's so simplistic, but it would make life so much better for everybody on all levels.
Elaine, it's remarkable to me. You are absolutely right. And what's remarkable to me is when you have leaders of large companies who are famous for their bad customer service. And I'm not saying anything out of school. They're actually, MSNBC does a list every year.
Yeah. The
Customer Service Hall of Shame. And at the top of that list, year after year, for instance, Bank of America, Comcast. Comcast is horrible. And so, but here's the thing. I live in Naples, Florida. It's one of those places like Beverly Hills, like Manhattan, where there's some extraordinarily wealthy people here. Our airport, we have this small private airport, all these jets come in all winter long. Mm-hmm. They come in for like the weekend or whatever. Private jets, corporate jets. And these people live a 5-star service life. You know? They know what good service is. The CEOs, the vice presidents, these people know who are running the company, making decisions for the company. They know what good service is.
Yeah.
But then they just don't care that their company does not provide good service. That to me is remarkable. It's one thing if you just have no knowledge of it. Yeah. Like you had maybe a rough upbringing and you never went to a nice hotel or you never went to a nice restaurant. No experiences to give you context.
Yeah.
But
I think it's even more than that, Ted.
Yeah.
I think, humans fall into 2 categories. You're a giver or you're a taker.
Yeah, that's my favorite book. I wish my favorite business book were my own book. My favorite business book is Give and Take by Adam Grant.
Yeah.
And givers, takers, matchers. And you know what's funny about this? I don't know if you and I had discussed this before. So Adam, is a really good blogger. I subscribe to his, I think he's a monthly email, and he's just incredibly, he lives giving by providing all this value to these people who just, subscribe to his newsletter. I love it to death. And some of the stuff that he writes is just absolutely brilliant. So, for instance, he said, you may be a taker if say I'm a giver.
Yeah, I'm a giver.
I love it. And Elaine, it's the funniest thing because when I read his book a couple years ago, I said to myself, wow, these givers are really over the top, and I admire them to death. I need to up my game. Yeah. I need to be more of a giver. And you talk to some people about the book, and they say, oh, yeah, I'm a giver. I only talked to one person who has identified themselves as a giver, and I know that this person is indeed a giver.
Yeah.
So it's Adam's experience since writing the book is really very interesting.
Oh, yeah.
So.
Well, it's funny, and like a lot of people give in different ways. You taught me something. I mean, I'm in social media and do search and all that, and been in it for years. But we were having a discussion a few years back, and I think we were talking about your growth on Twitter. There was a group of us, I think Sean Murphy and Mark Babbitt, and we were talking about, and you said, I love the fact that people are following me, so I follow them back. And I thought, God, if I could package that and show that to companies, because you know what? That's what it's about. It's not a one-way street. You see these big companies, they have hundreds of thousands of followers, and they're following 7 people. It's like, how can you really get your finger on the pulse if you're not actually paying any attention?
Yeah. So it's really funny. I'd never counted before. I was talking to Mark, my co-author, and just yesterday, and he said, we mentioned this phrase 12 times in the book. And the phrase is more social, less media.
Yes.
And this is the problem that companies have. And actually, so if you're working with or running a small company, you really have an advantage over big companies.
Oh, yeah.
Big companies are maybe more active in social media, but they are typically, not always, but typically doing it really, really poorly, like you described. And when you go to the Twitter feed, so for instance, a while back I was trying to buy some running shoes, and I reached out to Nike, and I looked at all the Nike. They have different brands, so Nike Women, Nike Running, Nike Sports, all these different
cross trainers. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not just one. It's not just Nike because they're so big.
Yeah.
And I looked at them, and all the tweets that they had sent for the last 3 days were broadcasting out. There wasn't a single. I don't even know if they retweeted anybody else's work, and that's that's good. But they weren't interacting with anybody.
No.
So imagine Nike shares something like a press release, and I'm just picking on Nike, but this is, across the board.
Yeah.
It's remarkable to me. They share maybe an article, a press release, something about their newest product, and you say, wow, that's great. And you tweet back to them, and you might ask them a question. So when is that going to go on sale? When can I get it? And they don't answer.
Yeah.
Really? And so then you say to yourself, maybe I don't need to buy them. Maybe I'm going to buy a different brand. So it's just stupid. More social, less media, because social media, it's about being social. It's about having conversations, even if it is just on Twitter, 140 characters at a time.
Yeah.
You go from that to, hey, let's email, let's go to Skype, let's meet for coffee next time we're in the same city. This is how relationships are built, as we know, because we're digitally fluent by now, even though we're not natives. And it's remarkable to me that the brand managers, the people running marketing departments, typically, let's face it, they had to work their way up the career path, up that pyramid. And back when they were cutting their teeth, and certainly when they were learning marketing for their MBA, they were learning in industrial age practices, and they were learning this is how we put together a TV ad campaign. This is how we put together, magazine ad campaign. And sure enough, social media comes along, and they say, "Oh, great, another broadcast tool."
Yeah.
Well, you know what? Social media is so not a broadcast tool because it's so easy to tune people out.
Well, yeah, and I've been saying since 2011, social media is about connecting. Yeah. Engagement makes it a two-way street. It's not a broadcast medium.
Yeah.
There's got to be that back and forth.
Yeah. Elaine, let me give a shout out, a completely unsolicited shout out to a guy who has just provided me tremendous value in the last about year. So there's this guy who works for Accenture. He's in their innovation program. He's a wonderful individual that I look forward to meeting in person one day. We've Skyped, and his name is Jay Shetty. So Jay is in London. I'm in Florida. Jay just sends me these great infographics, graphs, everything, really interesting stuff. Like on trends and all different things, generational trends, how the human brain works, you name it. And every day I look at that stuff and I'm like, wow, this is really great. And then I share it, and that I'm not going to be shy about this. The fact of the matter is I have about 400,000 plus people that follow me on Twitter, and I follow almost all of them back, unless they're cranky, crazy people. Occasionally, anyway. And so here's the thing. He's got like 5,000, which is a really good number, by the way. I remember when I wanted to have 5,000. I'm not belittling it, but by sharing this stuff with me and allowing me, thank you, Jay, to share it with with my network, I am providing these people value. They are saying, well, this Ted guy, I hope they're saying, this Ted guy provides interesting stuff. I'm going to pay attention to him, right? Yeah. Thank you, Jay. Yeah. And because of that, we're starting a new blog for Meddle. We haven't really talked about it yet, but it's called Open for Business. It's based on Ordinary People Extraordinary Network, which is probably the most popular idea from this book. Yeah. Ordinary People Extraordinary Network means people like you and I maybe we're expert in our field, but we certainly are not expert in most fields, but we know people who are. We can fill gaps, and as companies, we can fill those gaps too. And so a company need not have all the talent in-house. We can reach out through our social networks and reach out to them. Well, Jay is a perfect example of this. So when we put together, who do we want to contribute? I said to Vidar, the CEO, I said, so by the way, it's open, FOR.business, the full word spelled out, Open for Business. And they said, Vidar, we've got to give Jay a page. His page of infographics, so it's like Jay Shetty's world of infographics or something like that. And it's really, I love looking at it. It gets my eye right away. Every single time he shares one, I at least look at it. So here's the thing: this guy, back to Adam Grant, he's giving, he's providing value. Because I love his stuff so much, and I am by far the only one. There are other people who have large followings who share his stuff as well, I notice. This guy, Jay, is building his personal brand like never before. And I'll bet he's going to be a partner with Accenture. I'll bet he's going to be their CEO one day. But if he decides to move on to a different company, I'll bet he'll get snapped up.
Yeah.
In fact, his bosses, if they're listening to this, I hope they treat him well. I'm sure they do.
Yeah.
Actually, I know his boss. I know they treat him well.
Oh well, that's good. That's good.
But that's the thing about building your personal brand. This guy loves, collecting these infographics, and he says, I'm going to share them with people who might find them interesting, and then if they do find them interesting, I'll share the next one. And that whole thing, it's just, that's the way the social world works. It isn't one person, like, what's trouble with social is professors, I've noticed. So you're saying about brands having trouble. Professors have the whole talking head syndrome, where I'm at the lectern reading my notes, which, by the way, you could read that in a book. Why do I need to? Anyway, so I've had some bad professors in college and some good ones. I'm at a lectern reading my notes, and you 300 people in my audience are there taking notes, and then we're gonna have a quiz at the end of the week. Really? So when they get on social media, I have things to say. I am important. And, good for you. Because
it's like, well,
I'm not going to
shouting in the wilderness.
Come on, Mr. Self-Important. There is an author, I won't name this person because I just absolutely love his work, but I'll tell you something. This book, A World Gone Social, is, if he understood social media, he would have written this book. And he doesn't understand social media, so I got to write it instead.
Yeah.
But the guy's a professor, and he does not understand social. When you see him on social, he broadcasts his very, he's a smart guy. I love his brain, but somebody needs to coach him.
Well, yeah, because sometimes that's what we all need, okay? We all need mentors and coaches because we can't do it all. And especially with the speed of light that our whole human race is running at this moment, it's so hard to try and even keep current, never mind get ahead of the curve. There's so much constantly happening. Okay, in terms of Meddle, okay, this is going to seem like a funny question to both of us because, 5 years, where do we see Meddle in 5 years? Like, that's a long, long time.
Yeah. And it's a wonderful question. This is why I want to work with a startup. At the time, by the way, that I started working for Meddle, I was interviewing with 3 enterprises, and one of them offered me a lot more money than Meddle, and I was like, Vidar, if you can make me an offer quickly, I don't want to work for them. I want to work with you, because I love this company. So here's the thing: 5 years from now, the God's honest answer is who knows, because a company needs to pivot and be nimble and be agile and adjust and adapt. The companies that don't do that are the ones that are in huge trouble. However, having said that, our new release for Meddle, with added bells and whistles, is going to come out, because I'll tell you, I'm not the only one by far. It's not all about me, but the first thing I did when I started working with them is I said, okay, I want this, 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 and this, because I use it, I love it, and I want more. So one of the things that we're going to do, for instance, is we're going to have a full long-form blogging as well as short-form. So why not do both in one place? Another thing we're going to have down the road is a WordPress plugin, so that every website you have can have Meddle right on it as an additional source of quality content. So down the road, we are, a social, an enterprise software company. So we will be working with some very large brands, white labeled on their site to show off the intelligence of their workers, the talents of their workers. And down the road, I have a good friend by the name of Tom Mendoza. Tom Mendoza, last time I was in New York, I had dinner with him and his wife. Wonderful host, by the way, just they absolutely spoil me rotten. And when we were meeting, he told me about I think he was the first salesman at NetApp, and now he's the vice chairman. So it's a large company, but back in 1992, I think, or 89, I forget when he started. Back at the inception of that company, he was one of the first people they hired, and not sure what number he was, but he stayed with the company, grew with it. And he was offered, the CEO of another larger company tried to poach him away at some point. And he said, you know, your company already went public. My company hasn't. And I can't imagine how you could entice me away.
Wow.
So where is Meddle going to be 5 years from now? 5 years is forever in the life of a software company.
Yep.
We're bound to be huge because good leadership, and that's it. And I'm not talking about the marketing guy. I'm talking about the founders, the CEO and the CEO. These two partners, Vidar and Balu, they've got it going on.
Yeah.
And some of the staff that they have developing this product do as well. And I'm really, really impressed with the mind power. Otherwise, never mind. You know, there's all sorts of cool companies out there that have great products. Bad leadership, never mind.
No, and I think it's great too when it all fits like that, and they understand that as time goes on, you have to morph and be able to fit what's coming.
I'll tell you what, if you were to ask Sheryl Sandberg or Mark Zuckerberg where Facebook will be in 5 years, if they could tell you, I would be afraid as a stockholder.
Yeah.
If I were a stockholder.
Yeah.
Because
yeah.
in 5 years, you know, we will still be in business. We will certainly be larger than we are today. We will be providing value. Who knows what our customers will want?
Yeah. And that's perfect. That's exactly the answer I was hoping for. You know, we've talked about a lot of things, and understanding that you have to change and adapt and retool just to fit in now, because it is so fast. We are moving at the speed of light in a lot of areas, and I have to, that comes with the caveat, not all areas, but in a lot of the areas that you and I deal with, it is literally the speed of light.
Yeah.
So I can't believe our time is like gone.
I know. I'm heartbroken.
Yes, and I love having you on the show. I know the viewers love all your insights and your incredible value added that you offer every time that I talk to you. Want you to leave us with one little nugget people can implement in their daily lives, either personal or business.
Okay, so whether or not you use Meddle, and I hope you do. So if you see the little lower third down there, Meddle.it, whether or not you use it, build your personal brand. This is the age of somebody Googling you before they ever accept your call, somebody Googling their favorite topic and your name comes up first, or it doesn't come up at all. This is a time when you need to be out there, whether you were raised to do that, whether you have those values, or whether it's uncomfortable for you. Make it comfortable. You have to establish yourself as an individual who provides value. So build your personal brand.
Oh, that's such a great point, Ted. And I'll make sure that the links are there for people who want to join Meddle.it. And they'll also be on the Business Banter Plus page all about Ted. Thank you so much for being my guest. You really are incredible. It's wonderful to talk with you, and thank you for sharing so much with our audience. I look forward to the next time we can get together. I'm Elaine Lindsay. This is Business Banter Plus TV, and I've been talking with Ted Coiné, the CMO of Meddle.it, for those of you who want to go grab yourself an account. Make your day matter, and I'll see you next time.